The store's air felt heavy with failure. In a flickering Arkansas grocery, the hum of dying refrigeration units mingled with silence. The manager clutched a walkie-talkie like a lifeline, his face pale. 5 suppliers gone, he said. All with Walmart now. Employees froze mid-stock, their future dissolving. Outside, Sam Walton, late 60s, stood in denim and a ball cap, watching. No smile. No gloating. Just a quiet knowing. This wasn't theft. This was evolution. Down the block, a massive new Walmart glittered with promise. Brighter lights, endless choices, half the price. "We can't compete," whispered the owner's daughter. Walton turned to his old Ford truck, dust clinging to his boots. Behind him, decades of family-run tradition crumbled. The war for America's wallet had begun. This was no accident. It was strategy. And Walton was just getting started. Sam Walton never looked the part of a corporate giant. No suits, no boardroom swagger, just khakis, a ball cap, and the wisdom of a man who knew his customers better than they knew themselves. In the early 1970s, while retail moguls threw lavish openings in big cities, Sam drove alone, across dusty highways, tracking product margins in a yellow notebook. "Give them low prices, and give them respect," he often said. He didn't want to build stores. He wanted to build trust. His strategy was simple. Rural America was underserved, forgotten by big retailers. He'd changed that. He offered bulk prices, efficient logistics, and a deeply loyal employee base. As towns buckled under economic pressure, Walmart arrived like a savior, not glamorous but reliable. Sam didn't want attention. He wanted dominance, quietly, thoroughly, and permanently. Before Walmart, retail was tribal. People knew their grocers, their butchers, their stationers. Loyalty wasn't transactional, it was communal. But Sam Walton understood something others didn't: scale beat sentiment. While traditional stores bought goods at fixed prices, Sam negotiated directly with manufacturers, cutting out layers. His secret? Distribution. Walmart's early investment in regional warehouses and private trucking fleets allowed them to restock shelves faster, cheaper, and smarter. The moment a product sold, it triggered a chain reaction: inventory, supply, delivery. This wasn't just shopping. It was optimization. As mom-and-pop shops adjusted prices by gut feel, Walmart used data. Cold, precise, unstoppable data. One by one, competitors fell. Not because they were unloved, but because they couldn't keep up. In Bentonville, Arkansas, a modest town became the nerve center of a retail empire. Sam's desk was cluttered with product samples, dog-eared reports, and soda cans. He wasn't just a CEO. He was a field general. Every week, he held strategy calls with store managers across the country, demanding updates on shelf placements and pricing tweaks. "The customer notices everything," he'd say. His obsession with detail bordered on mania. He'd visit stores unannounced, quiz employees, inspect restrooms. Nothing escaped his gaze. This wasn't paranoia, it was precision. He knew one misstep could unravel the trust he'd worked decades to build. Bentonville wasn't just his hometown. It was Walmart's war room. By the early 1980s, the warning signs were everywhere. Small business profits dipped, malls shuttered earlier than usual, storefronts turned to for rent signs. But most didn't see it for what it was. They thought it was the economy. They didn't see the storm moving in from the heartland. Sam Walton had built not just a chain, but an ecosystem, one that thrived where others failed. Town after town, the same story played out. Lower prices, larger stores, quieter exits. It wasn't loud. It was surgical. The world would soon call it disruption. But in these early days, it felt more like a slow erosion, not by force, but by gravity. And at the center of it stood a man whose quiet ambition was reshaping America. Long before the billions, Sam Walton was just a boy stocking shelves in his father's Missouri store. He swept floors, took inventory, and watched how credit and kindness held a town together. But war changed him. Returning from World War II, he saw America not as a patchwork of towns, but as one market, sprawling and untapped. He married Helen Robson, a sharp-minded daughter of a banker, and together they planned not for wealth, but for permanence. "Retail can't be about ego," Helen once said. "It has to be about staying power." Their bond was the blueprint. She handled numbers, he handled people. And when Sam opened his first Ben Franklin franchise in Newport, Arkansas, in 1945, the seed of something bigger had already taken root. He wasn't building a store. He was testing the future. A future that would be called Walmart. Helen Walton never sought headlines, but she may have been the backbone of the empire. Born into numbers and discipline, she brought structure to Sam's vision. She gave him one rule: you can do anything you want, as long as we stay out of debt. That discipline shaped Walmart's DNA. Every expansion was meticulously budgeted, every risk calculated. Sam might have been the dreamer, but Helen ensured the dream didn't implode. At home, the family sat around modest dinners, no servants, no excess. The children, Rob, Jim, Alice, and John, were raised not as heirs, but as participants. They took out trash, worked registers, folded inventory. "If you want to understand Walmart," one friend said, "you need to understand Helen. She was the brakes on a man built like an engine. And in her quiet restraint, she created a fortune that would outlive them both." The Walton children didn't grow up in luxury. They grew up in retail. Saturdays meant working the floor, not spending allowances. Rob Walton, the eldest, once said, "We didn't inherit money, we inherited a mission." That mission was clarity. Serve the customer relentlessly. Grow only when the math worked, and never forget the margins. Sam made sure they understood the grind. He'd drive them to competitor stores just to compare shelving techniques. Alice, who would later become one of the richest women on earth, remembered stocking shelves until midnight. John and Jim managed warehouses during summers. It wasn't punishment. It was training. Walmart wasn't just a job, John once said. It was our family's language. And that language, built on discipline, humility, and hustle, would turn them into the wealthiest dynasty America had ever seen. Sam Walton's obsession wasn't greed. It was order. He logged every fuel receipt, calculated sales per square foot by hand, and drove thousands of miles in his truck to visit stores unannounced. "If you don't see it yourself," he told managers, "you don't know it." His truck wasn't symbolism, it was strategy. While competitors stayed in glass towers, Sam shook hands with janitors. He'd eat at store cafeterias, count customers in parking lots, inspect restrooms. The message was clear: humility builds loyalty. His frugality became legend: flying coach, staying in motels, wearing 8 watches. But it wasn't an act. It was a system. Sam believed any dollar not spent wisely was a dollar stolen from the customer. And so, in the age of rising CEO extravagance, he became a titan by staying small. As Walmart expanded, Sam faced a decision that would shape everything: go public. In 1970, the company opened at $16.5 per share. Some warned him public shareholders meant pressure, scrutiny, and loss of control. But Sam saw it differently. With more capital, he could scale faster, reach more towns, outpace every rival. The IPO raised $5 million, and none of it was wasted. Every cent went into building warehouses, training staff, refining systems. By 1975, Walmart had 125 stores. The stock quietly surged. Helen still clipped coupons. The family still drove beaters. But the engine had changed. Walmart was no longer just a growing retailer. It was a machine. And the machine was accelerating. America didn't realize it yet, but the Walton family wasn't chasing fortune. They were rewriting how capitalism itself would function in the decades to come. By the mid-1980s, Walmart was expanding at a breakneck pace: 20 stores, then 50, then 100 in a single year. Competitors scoffed at first. They mocked Bentonville's backwater HQ. But soon, their laughter turned to alarm. Town after town fell into Walmart's orbit. Shopping habits changed. Big brands bent to Sam's demands. Suppliers were pushed to lower costs or risk being delisted. They didn't just sell cheap, a rival CEO said. They made us feel obsolete. Inside Walmart's war rooms, maps glowed with red pins, each one marking new territory. Sam didn't hide his intent. We'll go where others want, he told his team. Rural America became the proving ground. But behind the bright aisles and rollback prices, the tension grew. Independent retailers, corner stores, even small chains, all felt the noose tightening. Walmart wasn't just growing. It was swallowing. With power came backlash. In places like Iowa, Ohio, and Alabama, protests sparked. Business owners formed alliances, chambers of commerce convened emergency meetings. They called Walmart a destroyer, a parasite. In one small town, residents organized a shop local week, urging neighbors to boycott the new supercenter. But the turnout was thin. Prices spoke louder than principles. I want to support local, one woman said, but my kids need shoes. That was the paradox. Walmart didn't force anyone. It simply offered better deals and left communities to make impossible choices. Meanwhile, Sam stayed silent. He never responded to critics publicly. Let them talk, he'd say. We'll be here when they're done. And sure enough, as the headlines faded, the parking lots filled again. The resistance wasn't enough. The revolution had become routine. What set Walmart apart wasn't just pricing. It was control. In the 1980s, Sam pioneered a satellite network connecting all stores directly to HQA. Real-time data flowed into Bentonville. Inventory, sales, foot traffic. It gave Walmart something no one else had: predictive power. If diapers were running low in Texarkana, trucks rerouted by noon. If lawn chairs sold out in Tulsa, restocks came within 24 hours. They weren't just responding to demand, they were anticipating it. The system made managers obsolete. Algorithms decided which products lived or died. We don't guess, one VP said. We know. Competitors relied on quarterly reports. Walmart ran minute by minute. The company wasn't just growing. It was becoming omniscient. And in that data-driven grip, American retail began to bend toward one will: Bentonville's. But scale had a cost. Employees, once the proud heartbeat of Walmart, began to feel the strain. Hours were cut. Benefits tightened. Union efforts emerged in scattered stores, met with corporate firewalls. You're not family, one worker muttered. You're a number. Still, others clung to loyalty. It's not perfect, said an assistant manager in Kansas, but it's a job, and around here, that's rare. The duality defined Walmart's labor legacy. For some, it was salvation. For others, exploitation. And while critics howled about wages and worker rights, Walmart's stock soared. It wasn't ignorance. It was indifference. Walmart had learned that the customer valued price above all. So, the company doubled down. The workers stayed. The shoppers came. And the machine rolled on. Walmart's influence seeped into every crevice of the American economy. Towns reorganized around it. Real estate developers changed zoning codes to make space. Entire highways were built to connect to supercenters. Trucking firms, manufacturers, even farmers, all bent to Walmart's cadence. If you wanted shelf space, you adapted. If you didn't, you disappeared. Some suppliers were forced to move operations overseas just to meet price demands. They asked us to cut costs by 30%, a toy maker said. So we moved to China. Walmart didn't just sell products. It changed how products were made, packaged, and shipped. It was capitalism at full throttle. Efficient, cold, precise. And at the center was the Walton family, growing richer not by chasing trends, but by engineering necessity. In 1992, the world paused. Sam Walton, 74, stood frail and thin at the White House, receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. President George H.W. Bush pinned it to his chest. Cameras flashed. Applause thundered. But behind the curtain, Sam was dying. Bone cancer had ravaged him. He walked with a cane, barely able to stand, but still spoke of values, thrift, service, grit. "If we work together," he said, voice trembling, "there's no limit to what people can achieve." It wasn't just a farewell. It was a torch pass. That moment signaled a new era. Sam's grip was loosening, and the empire would soon be in the hands of his children. Some feared they lacked his humility. Others feared they'd be even more ruthless. The founder's shadow was long. But legacies aren't inherited, they're tested. Sam's death in April 1992 sent shockwaves through Walmart's ranks. Flags lowered. Stores held moments of silence. But inside the boardrooms, succession had already begun. Rob Walton, the eldest son, stepped in as chairman. Quiet, precise, lawyerly, he wasn't his father. He didn't charm. He executed. Under Rob, Walmart grew even faster. International expansion exploded. Canada.ni, Mexico.cal, China.cal. But with speed came scrutiny. Accusations of bribery, labor violations, and predatory practices piled up. The tone had shifted. What began as a mission now looked like a juggernaut. Some executives whispered that Sam would have never approved. Others disagreed. Sam hated waste, one insider said. Not weakness. The family stood united, but behind the smiles was a subtle tension. How do you preserve a legacy and profit from it? As the brand grew, so did the whispers. Walmart employees in Mexico alleged bribes to officials. A 2012 New York Times expose sent shockwaves through corporate America. Investigations followed. Executives denied wrongdoing. "We followed protocols," they insisted. But the damage was done. Walmart was no longer seen as the innocent heartland grocer. It was a global titan, accused of bending laws for market share. Behind the scenes, the Walton family moved quietly. They funded legal teams, reshaped governance, and increased philanthropic visibility. Alice Walton, now the family's public face, began speaking more often about art, community, and culture. "Let them talk," one strategist said. "We'll be in every household by the time they finish." Controversy didn't slow Walmart. It refined it. Inside the vaults of Bentonville, a different story was unfolding. Quietly, the Waltons were building one of the most sophisticated financial dynasties in history. Trusts, shell companies, and holding entities spread across the globe. They donated billions to education, art, conservation. But they also shielded their fortune behind legal armor. "It's not greed," one advisor said. "It's legacy management." They funded charter schools and museums, shaped economic policy through foundations, and influenced retail labor practices without headlines. While critics screamed about wealth disparity, the Waltons moved in silence. Their real influence wasn't in products, it was in systems. They weren't just retailers anymore. They were kingmakers. Billionaires who never needed to speak, because everything bent around them anyway. The world now saw them as symbols, not people. But the family had changed too. Rob took to yachts and private deals. Alice collected art worth hundreds of millions. And Jim became an influential banker. John, the quietist, oversaw massive infrastructure investments. They rarely gave interviews, rarely stood on stages, but their decisions echoed across nations. Every time Walmart shifted a policy, entire industries adjusted. Their faces weren't on billboards, but their fingerprints were on everything. Quietly, steadily, the Waltons had transformed from merchants into monarchs, American royalty without the crown. Sam once said, "Capitalism is best when it's invisible." His heirs had taken that to heart. not with malice, but with method. The old man had built a store. His children had built an empire. And the world would never shop the same again. By the early 2000s, Walmart had reached a tipping point. Profits soared, but the public mood shifted. Documentaries labeled it a corporate predator. Lawsuits piled up. Gender discrimination, wage theft, union suppression. In courtrooms and on cable news, the brand was bruised. For the first time, the myth of Sam Walton seemed vulnerable. But inside the company, the answer was not retreat, it was expansion. "We won't apologize for winning," one executive said. The company invested in new stores, new formats, even groceries. Critics shouted. Walmart built. The logic was clear. Control the essentials: food, clothing, medicine, and you'd control the customer. And so, even as outrage mounted, Walmart pressed forward. Not by defending itself, but by doubling down. It was no longer a store. It was a necessity. Behind the polished aisles, the workers reached a breaking point. In 2005, a leaked memo revealed Walmart's own executives discussing how to avoid providing health insurance to aging employees. Minimize exposure, it read. The fallout was swift and brutal. Politicians condemned. Activists mobilized. But once again, Walmart endured. In secret, reforms began: wage increases, healthcare pilots, eco-initiatives. Not from guilt, from strategy. "We didn't change," one insider whispered. "We adapted." Meanwhile, stores installed high-definition security, automated restocking systems, and algorithmic scheduling. The message to employees was clear: the company is evolving with or without you. Walmart wasn't heartless. It was efficient. But in the process it created something chilling: a workforce that clocked in with quiet dread and clocked out into dependence. As the political climate changed, Walmart pivoted again. It supported renewable energy, promised higher minimum wages, and even began selling organic products. A new slogan emerged: save money, live better. But beneath the surface, the algorithm still ruled. Every SKU, every price drop, every hiring shift, all guided by AI and data pipelines refined in silence. The Walton heirs had embraced tech. They hired Silicon Valley talent, digitized logistics, and explored drone delivery. Publicly, they smiled. Privately, they monitored dashboards from private enclaves. The system was no longer built on shelves. It ran on servers. Walmart had become a digital empire masquerading as brick and mortar. And the family? They had become invisible, rulers in shadows cast by glowing screens. But the greatest test came not from politics, but from Amazon. By 2017, e-commerce was devouring traditional retail. Walmart's supercenters looked sluggish. The family's empire stood on a cliff. Then came the counterstrike. Walmart bought Jet.com, hired former Amazon executives, and unleashed its own marketplace. Billions were poured into digital infrastructure. The war wasn't over milk and eggs anymore. It was over clicks. In the boardrooms, tension thickened. "Adapt or die," Rob Walton reportedly said. Their stores became fulfillment hubs. Employees became pickers and packers. Curbside replaced checkout. The Walton dynasty was no longer just defending its turf. It was invading the future. If Sam had fought in aisles, his children were fighting in bandwidth. And then, a global pandemic. In 2020, as cities shuttered and economies halted, Walmart stayed open. People lined up for essentials. Orders spiked. Store shelves emptied. And once again, Walmart became the backbone of American survival. But this time, the cost was clear. Workers faced exposure. Safety gear was delayed. Reports of infections emerged. Still, the doors stayed open. Profits hit record highs. Critics roared. The Waltons stayed quiet. "This is what we're built for," one executive said. But beneath the record revenue, something shifted. For the first time, Americans saw the people behind their products, tired, scared, irreplaceable. And while the Walton fortune grew by billions, the question echoed, at what price does a family become a kingdom? When the dust of 2020 settled, the scoreboard was clear. Walmart had emerged stronger, billions richer, millions more customers, deeper digital reach. But the strain showed. Workers protested for hazard pay. Shareholders questioned ethics. Cities debated zoning bans. And while the world cheered frontline heroes, many of them clocked out with paychecks barely covering rent. The Walton family stayed off camera. They made no major public statements. But inside their foundation meetings, reports circulated. Income gaps widening, automation reducing roles, rural communities more dependent than ever. We are part of the solution, a family rep said. But critics asked, or the cause? The question wasn't whether Walmart had won. It was what had been lost along the way. The company had fulfilled its mission. But fulfillment came with a price tag no receipt could track. Automation surged. In Bentonville's innovation labs, robots sorted packages faster than any human. Cashierless registers expanded. AI predicted inventory with uncanny precision. Every upgrade meant one less role. Walmart's transformation was efficient, but not empathetic. In rural towns, the job losses hit hard. Walmart was our last employer, said a laid-off greeter in Ohio. And yet, customers returned. They loved the speed, the precision, the promise that Walmart could be anywhere and everything. Behind the walls of progress, silence grew. Managers now reported to dashboards. Associates were rotated like code. The very human touch that once defined the company had been rewritten in ones and zeros. The empire still thrived. But the question echoed louder than ever, could you serve a community without being part of it? The Walton family had become silent architects of American life. They controlled more wealth than the bottom 40% of Americans combined. Yet they rarely appeared in public. No political campaigns. No interviews. Their power was embedded in tax laws, in real estate trusts, in lobbying arms and PACs. Every quarter, their fortune expanded, untouched by inflation or policy. In quiet offices, their advisors shaped retail trends, funded policy research, and mapped out generational transitions. Legacy isn't about today, said one trust lawyer. It's about 100 years from now. The family didn't need to rule. They simply needed to remain. And so, in silence they did. Walmart wasn't a company anymore. It was a nation, and the Waltons were its dynasty. But not all heirs agreed. Alice Walton, long considered the artistic soul of the family, began shifting the narrative. She poured millions into Crystal Bridges, Museum of American Art in Arkansas, built walking trails, opened public libraries. We need to give back more than we take, she said in a rare speech. Her actions drew praise and questions. Was it conscience? Or rebranding? The family continued to fund schools, climate tech, and food security programs. But nothing could erase the shadows. Each donation echoed a deeper irony. The problems they funded solutions for were often the very byproducts of the empire they'd built. Still, the gestures mattered. In a world shaped by algorithms and efficiency, even flawed generosity could shine. But the contradiction remained, sharp, unavoidable, unresolved. In the end, Walmart became something even Sam Walton never envisioned, a cultural mirror. It reflected every contradiction of the country it served, ambition and austerity, wealth and poverty, freedom and dependency. The Walton family stood at its center, architects, beneficiaries, guardians. They didn't need headlines. Their empire moved through data, distribution, and decisions made behind closed doors. And yet, beneath the spreadsheets and silence, there lingered a truth too vast to ignore. Walmart didn't conquer America. America became Walmart. It wasn't just the low prices, the vast aisles, or the rollbacks. It was the belief, whispered in every town, in every home, that success meant scale, and scale meant survival. The Waltons didn't just build a company. They rewrote the rules of modern life. The town of Bentonville looks ordinary. Brick sidewalks. A modest square. An old 5-and-dime store still stands, restored, polished, a tribute to where it all began. Tourists snap photos outside the original Waltons' storefront. Inside, relics sit behind glass. Sam's first ledger, his tattered boots, yellowed newspaper clippings. But the truth doesn't rest in artifacts. It breathes in every suburb where Walmart replaced community. In every town where prices undercut memory. This wasn't just the birthplace of a business. It was the quiet crucible of American capitalism's final form. No slogans here. No rollbacks. Just silence. Just the weight of what came next. Bentonville isn't just a town anymore. It's a monument, not to one man's rise, but to a nation's surrender to scale. Behind every Walmart receipt is a silent signature. The algorithms, the pricing models, the logistics, all traceable back to a handful of choices made by a single family. They don't appear in commercials. Their names aren't shouted in boardrooms. But they're there. In the fine print of contracts. In zoning proposals. In campaign donations. The Waltons operate with the precision of surgeons and the invisibility of shadows. They don't just respond to the market, they shape it. While other billionaires chase headlines, the Waltons' perfect anonymity. They don't want to be famous, said one financial analyst. They want to be inevitable. The family no longer needs to lead Walmart. Walmart leads itself. The machine runs on autopilot, but the map, that was theirs. And it still is. In schools across America, children study entrepreneurship, taught. They learn about Ford, Edison, Jobs, rarely about Walton. His story is too quiet, too ruthless, too systemic. But perhaps that's the lesson. Great empires don't always shout. Sometimes they whisper. Sometimes they smile. Walmart's legacy won't be written in innovation, but in infrastructure. Not in dreams, but in margins. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because you can't protest low prices. You can't boycott convenience. The Walton family knew that. They didn't sell luxury. They sold inevitability. And while others built brands, they built gravity. Something so large, so present, it felt natural. Ordinary. Unquestionable. Like air. Like asphalt. Like Walmart. Even today, when a new Walmart opens in a struggling town, it feels like both a promise and a warning. Jobs come. Prices drop. But the locals know what follows. The slow fading of the familiar, the reshaping of routine. And yet people come, not because they're fooled, but because they must. A single mom buying school supplies. A retiree comparing prices on medication. A teenager clocking in for his first job. Walmart isn't a villain. It's a vessel. A reflection. The store isn't just in the town, it is the town. Every fluorescent light, every scanner beep, every rollback tag tells the same story. That America chose efficiency over identity. And in doing so, made the Walton family its quiet kings. Sam Walton once said, "There's absolutely no limit to what plain ordinary working people can accomplish." And he proved it, then surpassed it. But in chasing that vision, something shifted. The people became the product. The dream became the system. And the system became permanent. Today, the Waltons live behind gates, above the noise, beyond the reach of the very machine they built. They don't need to speak. The barcode does it for them. The hum of inventory. The click of online orders. The silence of vanished competition. This isn't the story of how a family got rich. It's the story of how they rewired a nation. No finale. No curtain call. Just a receipt in your hand. And their name, invisibly written between the lines.